My name's Sally May, and I am going to be presenting to you today and discussing with you about confidence and resilience at work. And this is the outline for the presentation. I'm hoping I can get it done quite quickly and then allow enough time for some discussion and questions at the end. So if you have any questions during the presentation, if it's a big question, leave it till the end. If it's a little one because there's a word you don't understand or something like that, and we can just cover it quickly, then feel free to interrupt, and you could message in the chat, and Kotable will keep an eye on that, I think, because I won't be able to see it, and or just unmute yourself and ask a question. It's fine. Yeah, the sections are introduction. I'll introduce myself briefly in a second. And then introduce positive intelligence, where most of my tips come from that particular methodology. And we'll look at three topics, which the Launchpad Collective have told me tend to be the most important ones. And then I'll do a wrap up where I'll just summarize the key messages, and then we can have a discussion and questions. So let's move forward. So this is a little introduction about me. I'm a coach. And most people aren't actually sure what a coach does, and they think it's maybe a therapist. And there are some similarities, but a therapist has very different skills, and they're equipped to help you explore your past first, before looking towards the future. That's a sort of generic explanation. Whereas my job as a coach, I'm mainly looking towards the future, and I work with people to help them use their creativity and their resources and see beyond their own blocks and solve their own problems. And before I became a coach, just having trouble moving my slide forward, I worked in a big company and I had lots of interesting jobs. And I was also not very good at managing my own stress. So I've learned some useful techniques and I'll share some of them today. And now I work with senior people in corporates, so in big companies, and people who are starting to wonder, well, if I didn't have a job title, who would I be? So what do they want to do next? And something which feels more meaningful than what they've been doing up until now. So that tends to be what I do during the day, but I'm also really happy to be working with the Launchpad Collective as a job mentor as well. And I thought I'd share something personal about myself. In the past 2 years, I have started singing, and it's really nice. I never would have imagined I would have done this. I'm in two singing groups in Brighton, and we sing beautiful songs from all around the world, and they're often very spiritual, which is really lovely because I grew up with no religion, and I really like just sort of starting to touch on this kind of thing. So that's a little personal touch about me as well. So. The purpose of today's session is looking at confidence and resilience at work. And it is difficult to look for work and to fit in a new company. And I think it can be especially difficult if you are trying to adapt to a new culture, potentially learn a new language, and you might be carrying very personal difficulties as well. So my intention today is hopefully to share some tips and exercises which can be useful to you in the situations you're dealing with at work, or looking for work, and maybe in your personal life too. So I'd quite like to run a quick poll just to get an idea of what your situation is. So, Koteba, can you launch the poll, or should I try to launch it?
Yeah, let me try to launch because I can't do anything while I am recording. Just let me check.
Or I can try and do it then. Let's see.
Okay, here it's like, yeah.
Okay, what's your current situation? So if you could click on the right one, are you applying for jobs? Are you working? Are you studying? A combination of the above or something else, other. Okay. So at the moment, we've got two people studying, three. We've got three people applying for jobs. Okay, so it's a nice mix combination of this. Okay. Right. So we can move on now. Thank you very much. We can just end that poll. Oh, do you want to share the results? Sorry, I don't think everyone could see them, could they? So, mm,
Yeah, here is the result. You can
yeah.
see.
Okay.
All right, I will stop sharing now.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Right. So, I'm just going to try and close that. Thank you. Um, so the first part of this presentation is going to be quite a lot of me talking, and then we'll lead into doing a couple of exercises, and then we'll have the questions. So positive intelligence is where most of my tips come from. So an introduction to it, just to explain some of the terms, it was created by a man called Shirzad Chamine, and he's lectured on positive intelligence at Stanford University, and he's trained faculty at Stanford and Yale. He's written a book about it, which has been translated into several languages. And the reason he created it was because he was very depressed for many years, and he talked about the effect that his father had on him because he was quite a difficult man who probably had trauma in his life and was passing it on to Shirzad in the way he behaved. So Shirzad kept studying and looking for answers and couldn't find, he wasn't having the shift that he wanted to have in himself and his own depression. So he ended up creating this approach, which it draws on other areas like positive psychology, neuroscience, cognitive behavioral psychology, and performance science. And what is really good about it, it helps you to tackle the root causes of behavior, and it helps you to build up your mental fitness. So I'm just going to explain what mental fitness means. It's your capacity to respond to life's challenges with a positive rather than a negative mindset. So that sounds very simple and very easy. I think we all know it's not that easy, but I'll go into a little bit more detail. The way this actual methodology works, it combines two things. So you learn about how your brain works, and you learn some tools that you could use, but you also you do some muscle building. So you learn easy little exercises you can do to build up your mental muscles. So imagine if you were trying to get really strong stomach muscles, for example, what would you do? You'd you'd find out what type of exercises to do, and then would you just do them once and then magic, you've got amazing stomach muscles, or would you do them regularly and bit by bit you would build up those stomach muscles, and one day you'd look down and go, oh yes, now I've built up those stomach muscles that I wanted. So positive intelligence is encouraging you to do the same thing for your brain. So there's no magic quick fix. It takes time, but it's worth it. So today I'm just going to give you some tips, and there's a lot more detail in there's an app-based course, and there's the book that I mentioned before, and the website. So after this, when Koteva sends you the email, I've included some links to resources that you can use as well. So if there's anything that you want to know more about, just let me know. So maybe in the questions at the end, and I can try and include more resources in the email. So the premise behind positive intelligence is that every day, every single one of us is constantly sabotaging our own well-being, performance, and relationships. And the word to sabotage means to deliberately ruin or stop something. So basically this means, and maybe you'll recognize this, we're all doing or saying something which has a negative impact on ourselves or other people. And we don't even realize we're doing it until it's too late, quite often. So it's like we're on autopilot. And every single human being does it. It's all just part of being human. But the good news is we can behave differently. We can build new mental muscles and handle challenges with a calm and clear mind. And this has a positive impact on reducing stress, helping you feel happier, improving your performance, and having healthier relationships. So those sort of three areas cover just about everything which is important for people. So I don't know anyone who has never thought, I'm not good enough. I know I've often thought that, and many of us think about this, have this thought that pops into our heads quite often in some permutation of that thought. So I'm just going to ask you to notice when you're saying something like this to yourself. and just be open to saying something different. Could there be a way to see strengths and opportunities instead of fear? So it's starting to notice that that's just a voice and there might be other voices that you could hear. And if we put to your brain in an MRI scanner, when you're thinking a negative thought like I'm not good enough, you would see certain parts of the brain light up. So the brainstem, the limbic system, and parts of the left brain. So this is very simplified, but I will share some links to some neuroscience papers if anyone's interested in going into more detail on that. But it's just to let you know there's a lot behind this, and I'm just presenting the headlines of it. So when you're thinking something positive, if you were in an fMRI scanner, your middle prefrontal cortex, your empathy circuitry, and parts of the right brain would light up. The problem is that for survival reasons, we're primed to look for the negative. So the person who heard a rustle in the trees and didn't think it might be a tiger coming to attack them, well, they didn't survive. So we're primed to look for the negative. But in today's world, most of the time, we don't need to remain that much on edge. We can look for the positive as well. So that's part of what this is about. So when you're thinking I'm not good enough, is it really true? So one of the terms that we use in positive intelligence is saboteurs. So they're the agents who make you repeat these same old behaviors. So that's a saboteur voice is saying, I'm not good enough. And they can be very strong and very noisy. But if you can learn to notice them and then turn down the volume on them, then you're allowing space for something else to come up, something more positive. And what we talk about in positive intelligence is the sage. So this is your inner wisdom, your positive self, and it's a word which means wise. And we use it as a shorthand for all those parts of the brain that we looked at earlier on, which provide you with access to your inner wisdom. So, for example, if you're maybe struggling with a problem and you're just sitting down thinking about it and thinking about it, and you're not getting the answer, but then you go for a walk or you go and brush your teeth and the answer pops into your head. So that's an example of your sage brain working. So it's your intuitive mind is non-linear, it's creative, intuitive, it connects with other people, and you can learn to access it more often and not just kind of by accident when you're brushing your teeth. So that's a very brief introduction to positive intelligence. And now we're going to move into the tips and exercises. So if you don't have a pen and paper, now's a good time to try and grab one. So the first one is on self-belief. And again, just an example, you might be thinking, I don't belong here. I'm not good enough. And when you're saying these things to yourself, you're likely to be feeling quite negative emotions like fear, stress, anger, or maybe guilt and shame or insecurity. All right. So I do have two questions for you. The first one, so this isn't a test, don't worry, just answer the question in your head if you like. But are negative emotions good for you? So just have a think what your gut reaction is to that. And just the answer is either yes or no. Are negative emotions good for you? And then the next question, is pain good for you? So now I'm going to show you a horrible picture which illustrates the point. So I'm warning you. If you accidentally put your hand on a hot stove, what would you do? So you'd probably quickly take it off. You wouldn't leave it there for very long. And why? Because it hurts. So now we're comparing the two. So negative emotions, they're only helpful for 1 second as an alert signal, like that pain if you accidentally put your hand on a hot stove. They're a sign that something needs your attention. And if you stay in a negative emotion, it hurts your ability to see clearly and respond in a positive way. So we're comparing the negative emotions to the saboteurs here. So this is again, I'm going through it very fast. There are small exceptions to this. But we can go into that a little bit more if you've got any questions about it later on. But basically, yeah, notice if you're in a negative emotion and see it as an alert that your attention is needed on something. So I have a client recently who knows this model, and he said he came to a call and just said, I have been holding my own hand on the hot stove a lot recently. So that's a really lovely shift for him, because before he just used to get really angry, and now he can sort of laugh at himself a bit and say, "Oh, I am doing this to myself. I'm staying in negative emotions." So that gives him that extra level of awareness, and that means he can start to do something about it. So now we can introduce the saboteurs. The master one is the judge. So everybody has the judge, and I'll describe him or her in a minute. And then there are 9 accomplice saboteurs, so helpers. And if you want to, you can do a free online assessment to find out what yours are. But basically, at the simplest level, just think of saboteur and sage. So saboteurs are all of these voices, and everybody has saboteurs. They actually formed to help us survive in the first place. And they just take your natural strengths and cause you to overuse and abuse them. So, for example, there's a pleaser saboteur. So, someone with a pleaser saboteur, when they were little, their natural strength was that they were really loving and gentle and kind, and they just liked to help other people and be nice to them. But then, in situations where they felt out of control or stressed, or they were worried that other people wouldn't like them and things like that, they would do more and more for other people. And they end up, once you tip from it being a strength into a saboteur, you're constantly helping, pleasing, or rescuing other people. And you're constantly hoping to be liked. And you lose sight of your own needs. And you can actually become resentful as a result. So this last bullet point, win the battle, lose the war. In the moment, you carry on doing the pleasing behavior. Oh, I'm going to do this for other people. But then, because you're also resenting them, they can pick up on that energy. And you were hoping that they would like you, but it ends up with them liking you less. And if you were better at setting boundaries and looking after yourself more, then maybe you'd be actually winning. So, and playing into your natural strengths more. So there's examples like that for all of these saboteurs. Hopefully that helps you to sort of understand. And the idea is just to aim for a balance. Okay. So we're coming towards an exercise. So the judge or the inner critic. So this is one that everybody has. If you're feeling bad about anything for more than a second, your judge is involved. And it focuses on what's wrong. So it might be saying about you, I'm not good enough, or I'm stupid, and about other people, he's an idiot, or about circumstances, I will never be happy until this happens. So, and he or she makes you feel really bad about things, and very binary, so very black and white. So things are good or bad, they're right or wrong, and they blame people, and there's no nuance, and they're not very objective. Right, so this is the judge. So this is the first exercise now. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just write down what negative thoughts you have at work or about applying for a job. So again, an example before was I don't belong here, or it might be something about somebody at work that you don't like about them, or it might be something about yourself. So just think of the negative thoughts you have about work or applying for jobs or studying. And if you don't have any examples for that, then just think of something in your personal life, because I'm not going to ask you to share it. And then once you've written it down, then just pick one, just one of them, which really represents, which you want to do this exercise with. So, for example, I'm not good enough, or I don't belong here. So choose that main thought, And as you're thinking about it, notice how your body feels, because normally when we're thinking of something negative like this, we feel quite small and tense. So just notice how you feel in your body as well while you're thinking that. And now the exercise is take that thought and write, my judge thinks that I am not good enough. So just bear with me. It's an exercise, but write out, my judge thinks, and then write out that thought. And if you've got an emotion attached to that, like frustrated or angry, stressed, then you could also write, my judge is frustrated. And what this is doing, it's starting to help you gain some distance from this thought, because it is just a thought. And then let's take it a little bit further. So what name could you give your judge? So you can just call it my judge, but you could call it the doubter, the inner critic, the exterminator. Some people like to pick the name of a baddie in a film. So like Darth Vader in Star Wars, or maybe there's a word in your own language which you'd like to use. So just see if you can think of a name to give your judge. And then maybe even what music goes well. So for me, yeah, the music that comes on in the film in Star Wars when Darth Vader, the guy with the big black mask comes on, that's I do have a client who said that every time she hears her judge voice now, she imagines Darth Vader and hears the music from the film and it makes her laugh. So instead of being tense and feeling small, she starts to feel more positive already because she's thinking, oh, this is just my judge. Okay. So it's a practice, but this can be really useful. So what I'm going to ask is next time you feel these negative feelings and you're thinking a negative thought, recognize that it's your judge and say, I see you, but I choose not to listen. And this is not easy because we've had the whole lifetime of listening to our judges. But what I want you to do, instead of going, oh no, I failed again, I want you to celebrate. Every time you think, oh, that was my judge, I want you to celebrate. You know, you're building new mental muscles each time you do that. Each time you recognize it as being separate to you, and you're allowing space for your own inner wisdom to come out. And just notice you'll start to feel different in your body, less tense and more relaxed. So the more you manage your judge, the more you can increase your self-belief. And it really takes time, but it's worth it. So little and often. And I have another tip relating to self-belief as well. For example, before you're going into a job interview or into a meeting, which is stressing you out. So this comes from a lady called Amy Cuddy, who did research, and she did a TED talk called Your Body Language May Shape Who You Are. So I'll include a link to that in the email after the call. But basically, she just says that you can trick your body into feeling more powerful. So go somewhere quiet, like, you know, if necessary, go into the bathrooms, the toilets, and stand tall. Put your arms in the air or put your hands on your hips and do deep, slow breaths for 2 minutes, and you will feel more powerful as a result. So you'll feel different in your body when you do that. And then you can go out and go into the interview or the meeting, and you can feel you've tricked yourself into actually feeling more confident and more powerful. So there is some science behind that, where they looked at different people and their body language and the power that those people felt, and you know, this does work. So next one is stress management. So the first thing to say is stress is normal. It's your brain's way of warning you about a challenge or danger. So when you face a perceived threat, there's an alarm system that goes off in the body and it releases hormones like adrenaline and cortisol. But if you say stressed For too long, it's unhelpful, as we know. It hurts your ability to see clearly and respond in a positive way. But again, the good news is we can train our minds in the way we might train our bodies. We can train our minds to stay calm and focus. And that's just through simple exercises, little and often. So now I'm going to do a very quick exercise, which you can repeat yourselves whenever you want to. If you're driving, don't do it. But otherwise, I'm just going to say that if you're comfortable to do so, you can close your eyes. And otherwise, you can just blur your vision a little bit and just stare into the distance. And just take a nice deep breath from your belly. And just hear the sound of your breath. And notice your feet on the floor, feeling stable and present. And take a finger and thumb and just gently rub the fingertips and focus on the sensation so you can feel the fingertips. And just relax your hand down. So that's an example of a small exercise which can help you shift from stress to calm clarity. So what you're doing here is you're energizing your sage brain, your positive self. And that's by bringing your primary attention to a physical sensation. So we did a little bit of touch. We did hearing. So you can focus on the sounds that are far away or sounds that are close to you. Vision, you can look. So you can do this even in a meeting because you can just really look at someone's face, for example, and really look at them. Or under the table, you can just rub your finger and thumb against each other. So this is something you can do just for 10 seconds. And what it does, it quietens the region of the brain where the saboteurs live, and it activates the region where your sage lives. And it releases endorphins, and that counters the negative impacts of cortisol, which comes from stress. So you can do it anytime before a job interview, a meeting, during a stressful moment, or anytime you feel overwhelmed. And what I would also recommend you do is do something like that every morning when you first wake up, and do it for as long as you can, because that charges up your batteries. And then during the day, your batteries will go down. Do it again, your batteries will go up. And it just makes it easier to cope throughout the day. So the last one is stay strong through personal challenges. So just checking what time it is. So this is a story about it's about a sage old farmer from Taoist China, and he enters his stallion, so his horse, into a competition, and he wins first prize. And his neighbors come and congratulate him, and he says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" And the neighbors are a bit confused. It's a very strange thing to say. And then a week goes by, and thieves come and they steal the stallion. So the neighbors come and say, "Oh, this is terrible." And he says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" And then a week later, the stallion finds its way back, and it's befriended a lot of precious wild female horses. So he's got lots of new horses, and the neighbors offer congratulations. And he again just says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" And they think, strange. So another week goes by, and the farmer's young adult son is riding one of the wild horses, and he falls off and breaks his leg. So all the neighbors come and offer their condolences. And again, he says, "Who knows what is good and what is bad?" So by now the neighbors are thinking he's losing his mind. But lots is going on in this village, and a war has broken out in the region, and the army comes to conscript the able-bodied young men. But they can't take the farmer's son because his leg's broken. So now the neighbors don't even come to congratulate him because they know what he will say. So we all know, don't we? Who knows what is good and what is bad? So as an example, this is just an example with profound wisdom in the story. So if you were tempted to say this is a bad thing, your judge was lying to you when it said that. So in which other areas of your life is your judge lying to you? So when people say how terrible something is, it's the judge of circumstances talking. Just checking where we are here, sorry. So I'm trying to share this. Can you all see the sage perspective? Yes, you can. Okay, sorry. So yeah, so when your saboteurs are saying this is a bad situation, this is terrible, that's the judge of circumstances talking. And the farmer didn't fall into the trap of saying that. He would always answer, who knows what is good and what is bad. So you can always say to your judge, I see you, but I choose not to listen. And you can be proactive about this. The farmer's quite passive and is waiting for the good thing to come, whereas you can actually be more active about creating something. So the sage perspective is every circumstance can be converted into a gift and opportunity. So another exercise here, if you look back at your own life and think about something bad which happened and maybe a gift which emerged from it, could you think about anything like that and maybe write it down? So this is an example of when your judge of circumstance was telling you something was bad, and in the end, something good came out of it. So for me, for example, when I used to work in that big company and I had lots of stress-related illnesses, if you told me at the time something good will come out of this, I would not have believed you. But now I'm I think that some good things have come out of it because I have a lot of empathy for people who struggle with stress. And I've learned some useful tips that I found useful and I can share with other people like I'm doing today. So can you think of something bad in your life which happened and a gift has emerged from it? And an important thing to say here is I'm not just saying cheer up and don't be negative, because we all know that bad things do happen and we can't control them. But what the sage perspective is just be open to the fact that there may be something good that could come out of it one day, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you don't believe anything good will come, you're not very likely to see anything good. If you believe it's possible, you're more likely to see something good when it comes. So another nice metaphor is think about it like a mental garden. So if you only focus on the weeds, which are the problems, they grow. But if you also make sure you water the flowers, which are the very small good things, your mental garden gets stronger. Okay, so now just getting to the wrap up. Where are we? Yes, we've got quite a lot of time. So we looked at three topics: self-belief, the confidence grows when we manage our inner critic; stress management. So we learned a 10-second exercise and a power pose. And staying strong through personal challenges is just being open to that sage perspective. And then I'd also just encourage you to build your mental fitness, which means celebrate. So now that you know these things, you can start to notice it and catch your saboteurs. So I don't want you to think, oh no, I failed again. I want you to celebrate every time you do catch it and think that was my judge. And I'm not going to, I see you, but I'm not going to listen to you. And I want you to think about, if you don't do it already, start your day with a prayer or meditation and take little mini breaks for mindfulness throughout the day just to charge your batteries back up again. So there's obviously a lot more we could say about this, but we've only got 1 hour together and I want some time for questions. So got one more slide, and this shows what kind of results are generated when you take a positive intelligence approach. So the saboteur-led approach, it might generate success, but not happiness. So I can certainly think of some politicians, for example, at the moment who see on television a lot. On paper, they've reached the top, they're successful, but do they look happy? No, they don't. Whereas if you're following a sage approach, this does generate success and happiness because you're looking at, tuning into your inner wisdom and improving your relationships and taking care of your own well-being as well. So just before we have some questions, I'd like to just take another minute or so to energize your sage brain, and then we can open up for any questions. So again, if you want to just feel the weight of your body on the seat and do a nice, slow, deep breath from your belly. Feel your diaphragm working. And notice the furthest away sound you can hear. Now the closest sound. Maybe the sound of your own breathing. Maybe bring your hands together, your two palms, and gently slide one palm against the other, all the way down to the wrist. And then do it in the other direction. See if you can hear the sound it makes. And then just relax your hands. And you can come back, and now if anyone has any questions, I'm very happy to take them.